24/7. Where the story goes, we go.
Well, it's afternoon here in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to Global Business Today. I am Yemisi Lanre-Ido. Well, we'll kick off now in Nigeria, exactly where the country is making all efforts to service its outstanding debt. And about $1.36 billion has been paid to 12 international and multilateral creditors in the first 6 months of 2024. According to an analysis from the public debt report released by the Debt Management Office, DMO, the figure for payments made between January to June 2024 represents a 216.07% increase from $431.23 million recorded in the corresponding period of 2023. The significant rise in the debt service payments owed by the federal and state government shows the mounting pressure on Nigeria's fiscal balance amid ongoing economic challenges. The multilateral firms include the Africa Development Bank, European Development Bank, International Fund for Agriculture Development, African Development Fund, amongst others. The DMO's 2024 half-year public debt report reveals that Nigeria's domestic and foreign public debt rose 71.2 trillion naira and $42.9 billion, respectively. We'll head over now to Mali, same in West Africa, where there seemed to be a solution to Mali and Australia mining dispute. That says Australia Resolute Mining Company has now resolved to pay $160 million to Mali's government after Mali detained its Chief Executive Officer, Terence Holohan, and 2 other employees this month. In a statement on Monday, the company said it made an initial payment of $80 million as part of the settlement from existing cash reserves and will make future payment of about $80 million in the coming months from existing liquidity. Resolute shares were down as much as 14.3% in early trading on Monday to $0.345, the lowest since March the 1st. The detained employees were in Mali's capital, Bamako, to hold discussions with mining and tax authorities regarding general activities related to the company's business practices. Well, Resolute is currently working with the Mali government to release the detained employees who remain safe and well and are receiving support from the UK and international embassies and consulate. Well, Mali is one of Africa's top gold producers, and reports say the detention of mining company employees, which includes some senior local staff at Canada's Barrick Gold, is becoming a pattern as the government seeks to extract more income from the sector. We're still talking mining now. Illegal miners at a disused shaft in South Africa are facing starvation as police officials close entrances to the mine shaft used to bring them food, water, and other basic necessities as part of a government strategy to force them to return to the surface and be arrested. Well, this comes as authorities in South Africa put together a team, including mine rescue experts, to come up with a plan to bring to surface illegal miners there.
What we've been struggling with, we've been fighting for, is for the people underground to get humanitarian assistance. They must get food, they must get water, they must get their medical pills, everything, you see. So that thing, it helps us a lot. So we are really happy for that court order so that we can have a way forward. We can save lives. There are people who don't have any means of income. The only thing that they know is mining. So automatically they will go back to that hole and try and dig and get something to put the bread on the table. The first person that went underground, he volunteered that he want to go underground and check the situation. He's the one who resurfaced and came back and told us the situation underneath is bad. There are people who are dead. There are people who are extremely sick. There are people who are sleeping with the corpses around them. The situation is there are people who are very weak, dehydrated, hungry. Starvation is the order of the day underneath.
This operation of the police stop everything. We are suffered underground. Some of us, they died. Some of us, they are sick, critical sick, not just sick, because underground for now, there's nothing left for someone to eat, to drink, or anything that can make a human being to survive. There is nothing left underground for now. We decided because of hunger and know that where we can get something to eat is only on this mine. The owner, they left open. That's why I see myself on underground for my family, to get for them to eat, and myself as well.
Well, positive credit ratings, of course, boosts any country's currency ego, yes. This time, I'm talking South Africa's rand. The rand gained Monday as markets welcomed rating agency S&P's decision to raise its credit rating outlook. S&P revised South Africa's outlook to positive from stable on Friday, citing plans for accelerated economic reforms by the new coalition government and a pickup in private investments. The rand traded at 18.12 against the dollar. That's about 0.52% stronger than its previous close. The credit outlook boost may incentivize continued reforms and efforts by the government to solidify these gains, such as improvements in governance and infrastructure investments. Well, irregular power is increasingly becoming a norm and a major source of worry for some African countries. This time in eastern Congo, where major cities lack constant power due to a tide of plastic waste flowing into a major hydroelectric dam. Although the Provincial Minister of Environment and Green Economy, Didier Kabi, is working with local authorities, or those working to find solution. The Ruzizi Dam, located at the south end of Lake Kivu, which borders Rwanda, supplies the city of Bukavu and others with electricity, and the power outages are hurting local businesses. The problem is linked to the growing use of plastics, coupled with a lack of waste collection in the region. And as the world races towards net zero emissions by 2050, a stark contradiction has emerged. While Western energy experts tout ambitious plans to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, a disturbing reality lies beneath the surface, where their models rely on a crippling assumption that Africa's per capita energy consumption will actually decrease by 2050, condemning millions to perpetual poverty. Well, this raises a critical question: can the world afford to sacrifice Africa's economic development on the altar of climate action? Well, the Secretary General, International Energy Forum, IEF, Joseph McMonigle, joins me now to answer these questions. He joins me from Riyadh. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. McMonigle. Well, let's begin this way now. I read your write-up on this matter, this particular matter. In your view, what role can the African Union play in enhancing energy governance across the continent, especially as Africa seeks to balance development needs with environmental sustainability?
Well, it's a really important issue that I think the world needs to focus on: energy poverty. The the world needs to focus on it the way the world came together on climate change, the way the world is coming together on, or came together on COVID. There needs to be the same emphasis on addressing energy poverty. Unfortunately, some of the even the least ambitious net zero scenarios assume reduced energy per capita use in Africa in 2050 than today. And so we're at a very bad starting point with assumptions that are don't take into account economic growth in Africa, rising energy demand from increased population in Africa. Of course, Africa grows the size of Thailand or France every 2 years. So it's a very important issue, and if we don't focus on it, we're never going to be able to solve this problem. And unfortunately, COVID really exacerbated the gap between those with energy and those without. So there's a lot of things we can do. I think number one, multilateral financing agencies have to remove these bans on hydrocarbon projects, at least just for developing countries, if not globally. And there needs to be a lot more international financing mechanisms for building out not just access, but to address affordability issues in Africa. So it's a big problem. I think the world needs to focus on it. Probably we need a separate focus on energy poverty apart from the climate discussions and other discussions, and we have to get realistic about it. The transition for places in Africa are from no energy or bad forms of energy to more energy, and so we just need to become more realistic about the issue and make some big policy changes.
Yes. So yes, be realistic. Now, the IEF has a global mandate, but Africa's unique energy challenges and opportunities require targeted approaches. Now, could you share what specific initiatives the forum is currently pursuing to support energy development and governance in Africa?
Well, I think it all stems, the future of energy in Africa, I think all stems from, number one, the need to industrialize Africa. So that requires a lot more energy. And yes, there should be wind and solar and renewables. I think there's a lot of opportunities for geothermal, maybe potential small modular reactors, but we have to address baseload power. And I think that means developing the hydrocarbon sector in these countries. Also, natural gas is really not just a transition or a bridge fuel. For a lot of countries, it's going to be a destination fuel. So, and by the way, gas can actually help reduce emissions in many parts of the world that are using dirtier fuels or transitioning from coal. So I think we have to allow Africa to have an all-of-the-above approach. We have to allow them to develop their own resources and also develop the resources for domestic consumption, not just for export, which is really the case today. And the end goal is economic growth, economic development, raising access to energy and economic opportunities. That's the central role for energy in Africa today.
Well, sure, Africa must develop its resources. Let's talk about sustainability, which is the heart of modern energy governance. How is the IEF working with African countries now to promote sustainable energy solutions that align with both local needs as well as the global climate goals?
Well, I think the African energy transition has got to be, allowed to start from the beginning. Again, this requires, developing resources in the country. Some of it's going to be hydrocarbons. Some of it's going to be critical minerals. A lot of the really important critical minerals that we need globally for the global transition in Africa. But the problem is what we do is the global north takes the resources out of the country. I think what we need to do in terms of hydrocarbon development and these critical minerals, there needs to be refining and processing in country, use of the resources in country, but instead of just mining and taking out the resources, there needs to be economic development derived for the public in these countries. And so I think there has to be a whole new approach to the energy transition in Africa, separate from other parts of the world. The developing world has a different starting point than Africa, and we need to recognize this. I don't think we can really allow the conversation to be Africa can only utilize renewable energy to expand its energy access and affordability. It has to be able to do whatever it can to industrialize its countries and economies.
Well, let's talk ADIPEC now, where you are. It's a prominent global event in the energy sector. How would you describe its significance to Africa, particularly for countries looking to build stronger governance frameworks and sustainable energy strategies?
Well, I think there's a lot of activity here at ADIPEC on both providing energy security in terms of maintaining investment in hydrocarbons, but also they have to be trailblazers on the clean energy side of the ledger as well. And so there's a lot of investment in clean tech here, in electrification, in things like nuclear, hydrogen, even building out energy efficiency and electric vehicle infrastructure. This part of the world is very close to Africa, closer to Africa than Europe and the United States. So there's a lot of sharing of technical expertise, of investment, of capacity, and so I think there's an important role here. The IEA comes out with a report every year called the IEA Technology Report. And essentially, that report is a great summary of where we are in the energy transition. It says wind, solar, nuclear, hydro can get us about halfway to meeting the climate goals by 2050. The other 50% has to come from new technologies like CCUS, like hydrogen, fusion, small modular reactors, maybe things we're not even thinking about now. But these are technologies that are not yet commercialized or even envisioned. And so this part of the world is investing in those technologies. I think Africa will benefit from these types of investments. But the bigger point, I think, in terms of economic development and industrialization for Africa is that until this clean tech solution is available, we have to keep investing in hydrocarbons to grow not just the global economy, but more specifically the African economies.
So key takeaways now to anchor on this. What are some key takeaways for African leaders and policymakers that they should focus on to drive energy governance, investment, and sustainability in Africa?
So I think we're already starting to see African countries find their voice as part of the climate discussion and the energy transition discussion. I think this is really important because prior to the last two COPs, especially the one here in Dubai, it was kind of a one-way conversation, mostly driven by the global north. There are a lot of transition plans for Africa and reports that were developed. The authors of these reports were not from the African continent. So we need Africa to take control of this narrative, and that means speaking up at global events, especially the COP meetings, which we saw last year in Dubai, and we saw also at the one in Egypt. But we have to see that continue. I mean, Africa has to have their voice heard and really demonstrate that the priorities are different. on the African continent. And I think this is really important. And also, we need Africa to start developing their own reports on what the transition should look like in Africa, and it needs these reports and analyses need to be written by Africans, not by people sitting in Brussels or in New York or Washington.
International Energy Forum Secretary General Joseph McMonigle speaking there. Thank you so much for your time on Global Business Today. You're watching Global Business Today. As the tension between Russia and Ukraine intensifies, there's been a significant drop in the profitability of renewable energy. We'll tell you more about this with European oil giant after the break. This is Global Business Today. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen emphasized that it is important to take a closer look at details while discussing a potential trade agreement with South America. This statement comes amid tensions as France is pledged to obstruct the deal at all costs. Speaking to newsmen just before the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, von der Leyen highlighted the complexities involved in negotiating such agreement, acknowledging the importance of addressing the specific concerns raised by member states like France.
We have been working intensively on the free trade agreement for Mercosur. We have to include all 27 heads of state and government and member states of the European Union. And of course, on the side of Mercosur, all partners of Mercosur also have to be ready to sign. So that's always at the very end a big task to overcome.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden is making headlines as he promotes his administration's clean energy revolution during a landmark visit to the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Was speaking to local leaders and environmental advocates. Biden emphasized the significance of protecting this vital ecosystem, stating that nobody can reserve it, and a clear reference to the incoming president-elect Donald Trump.
It's true. Some may seek to deny or delay the clean energy revolution that's underway in America. But nobody can reverse it. Nobody. Now when so many people, regardless of party or politics, are enjoying its benefits. Now when countries around the world are harnessing the clean energy revolution to pull ahead themselves. The question now is, folks, we don't have to choose between the environment and the economy. We can do both. We've proven it back home. It's no secret that I'm leaving office in January. I will leave my successor and my country a strong foundation to build on if they choose to do so. The Amazon rainforest was built up over 50 million years. 50 million years. History is literally watching us now. So let's preserve this secret place for our time and forever, for the benefit of all humanity. Thank you very, very much.
Well, the energy shock from Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a drop in profitability for many of its renewable projects has caused European oil giant BP to have a rethink. Almost 5 years ago, BP embarked on an ambitious attempt to transform itself from an oil company into a business focused on low-carbon power, but now it is trying to return to its roots as a big oil and gas player with a growth story to match rivals. BP Chief Executive Officer Murray Auchincloss plans to plow billions into new oil and gas development, including in the U.S. Gulf Coast and the Middle East, as part of his drive to improve performance and boost returns. Shell CEO Wael Sawan has vowed to take a ruthless approach to improve its performance, returns, and close a yawning valuation gap with larger U.S. rivals ExxonMobil and Chevron. And although concerns about fuel demand in China and forecast of a global oil surplus weighed on markets, oil prices edged up Monday after fighting between Russia and Ukraine intensified over the weekend. Brent crude futures were up 55 cents, that's about 0.8%, to $71.59 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were at $67.45 a barrel, up 45 cents, that's about 0.6%. Russia unleashed its largest airstrike on Ukraine in almost 3 months on Sunday, causing severe damage to the country's power system. Now, in a significant reversal of Washington's policy in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, President Joe Biden's administration has allowed Ukraine to use U.S.-made weapons to strike deep into Russia. And with that, it's a wrap on Global Business Today. Many thanks for watching and being a company all the way. Don't forget, you could also get more on our social media handles, as well as our content hub at www.ln247.news. I am Yemisi Landredo. I'll see you again.